really like the film. Never thought I'd see The Exorcist reimagined as a buddy cop movie, which is kind of the vibe I got off. And you set up for 199 sequels, so that's smart forward planning.
It's a good build.
Yeah, it's not bad. But what initially attracted you to this project? Because it is an odd one. It's a weird one.
Yeah, it is a weird one, but it was actually probably slightly weirder when I first read it. But what started to interest me was the central character, you know? So I read what was there, and then I went off and did my own little research, and then everything that I found out about Amorth just made me more interested. You know, it was a fascinating life that he lived. You know, and this is prior to him becoming chief exorcist for the Vatican, which when I first read the script, I had no idea that was a real job, you know, and so that intrigued me, you know. But, you know, if you look at Amorth, man, and we've crammed a lot of this into the story of the film, but, you know, 17, he has a calling, he goes to Rome, he says, I want to be a priest. They say, go away, you're too young, you don't know anything. So he goes back to his hometown of Modena, which is also where Ferrari was started, which is why there's Ferrari references in the film. You know, it's the middle of the Second World War. He becomes a partisan, he joins the resistance, he fights against the fascists, he's got a gun in his hand, he's shooting to kill. You know, he gets wounded. He finishes his war experience, he goes to law school, completes law school, starts working as a journalist. And then he goes back to Rome and says, I still have this calling. So they go, well, this is perfect now because you've learned some stuff. You have some things that you know that you can teach people when they're in their darkest hours and what have you. So then for, 30 years works as a journalist through the powerless, produces radio, produces television, writes hundreds and hundreds of articles. And then when he's turning 60, he gets a tap on the shoulder from some man that he only barely knew who was in the job before him. And that guy says, I've looked around, I've talked to everybody, you're the priest who has to take over this job. And Amorth's like, what are you talking about? I know nothing about this. And he goes, but you're the perfect person for it. And, so then that leads to 36 years of being the chief exorcist of the Vatican. That stuff, the individual actual story of the man, that's the stuff that interests me. And that combined with, scratching the surface of a little bit of Spanish Inquisition history, that interests me as well. I haven't really done horror movies in the past, and I'm not a fan. I have to say, I've been straight up and down. Horror movie comes out, I just walk that way. I saw The Exorcist at a theater in Auckland when I was 14, and the usher thought it was a really funny idea about halfway through the movie to bang on the ceiling with a broom. Good on you, funny bloke. And so it's not really my sort of the place I'm comfortable in or really know that much about. But I sort of the movies that I have seen, there's a lot of the time there's not a lot of character stuff going on. So I thought that would give us a different perspective in this movie if you grounded it in the reality of his life and the things that we talk about. And I think we've called the character Rosaria. This is a real situation where this young lady was, who came from the Vatican City. And that's another thing that we don't think about in terms of that's an actual place. It's not just a place the priests come and go from. It's a city. She grew up there. She was born there. And she lived there, and she was a young musician, young artist. And she disappears, and then her body disappears. And that all happens within the walls of the Vatican City. So there's a lot of real stuff brought into the film that I think gives it a different launching pad than maybe other horror films.
I've actually got an article about her open on my desktop right now,
right
this second, behind your image. So
right.
That's a bit weird. We've got 1 minute left. I'll just quickly ask, actually they're asking this to court, how did you find working with Julius as a director? Because he's my homeboy. We're both from Perth.
Okay, cool. I had a great time with Julius. No problems. I think he's on a learning curve as a director, but he was very definitely in control of what he was looking for. He was a good collaborator. He knows the difference between shit and shinola, as they say in America. So for the most part, you're always going to be suffering with your hours and stuff at a certain point during the course of a film. That's just a natural part of it. And we had probably extra difficulty stuff with this in terms of the literal atmospheres that we were working in, full of smoke and dust and floating pieces of styrofoam and fire and blah blah blah. And shooting under rain towers in the middle of the night in Ireland. It's always going to come with its difficulties. But yeah, I think we worked together as a team really well, and I definitely enjoyed his company. So it was a good combination.